Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be breaking down Harrison BDP's Decompression. Here is my remake. So yeah, I've gotten a few requests for this video. Actually, a lot of you guys kind of wanted to see a breakdown on this track. And a lot of you asked to see more specifically like the bass and the drums. So I figured I would focus on that for this video. You can get the project file as well as the samples from this in the description for free. So make sure to check that out. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, go there to get it because you won't have to go through the download gate. But yeah, let's dive in. So the first thing that I have going on here is this bass. It sounds like this. And yeah, so this is the thing that I've gotten the most questions about is how is this bass line made? And it's actually not that difficult. Basically, it's all about these sort of quick staccato notes and then just like the synth sound, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, so what I mean by this is if you look, especially in the first half of each of these sort of like two patterns, like if we look at these two separate 2-bar patterns, if you look at the first half here, these notes are very short and staccato. And then when it hits this, they kind of hold out a little bit longer. So this is the key to this, is like you want these sort of quick, sort of bouncy notes. And if you were to make a track like this on your own, this is what you would want to do, is make like a quick, bouncy bass line like this. Like it's not going to be like a long, held out respace or like any kind of thing like that. You just want these sort of short, little bass stabs like this. And then like, you know, there are some cool things in here, like this little thing, where it goes... You know, just adding stuff like that helps as well. It's all about the rhythm. Like you can see, it's just very, very syncopated and very rhythmic. So then for the sound is also not really too difficult. Basically, the way that I made this is it's a saw wave going into a low pass filter. We're using operator, and then the low pass has a bit of an envelope on it. So that's what gives it the pluck. So then after operator, I have the saturator. Just adding a bit of drive. It sounded a little bit too bland on its own. So to kind of give it a little bit more texture and just a little more flavor in general, I added the saturator. It beefs it up a bit. And yeah, so then I just have this compressor sidechaining into the kick. And that's really it for the bass. Like I said, it's pretty simple. It's just about sort of nailing those quick notes and then like getting the sound right. So then the next thing we have here is this kick, which sounds like this. And as you can see, there's no processing on this kick. So with this kick, it's really not about processing or doing like a whole lot of extra stuff. It's just about sample choice. And what I mean by this is a very specific type of kick. Like it's kind of like this softer, like it doesn't have a super hard transient. It's not like super clean, like it kind of sounds old school. You know, it just kind of has that like lo-fi house kind of feel, and that's what you really want for this kick. And also, it has to work with the bass line, which in this case it does. But yeah, so I recommend try looking through like old school hip hop sample packs. You know, like maybe that kind of stuff, like just anything that's supposed to be a little bit older, kind of like more textured samples. Well, you'll probably find a kick like this. And then there's also this little thing at the end. That little kick fill, that's pretty straightforward. I just did a little thing there. He does these throughout the track, so I figured I would add that in there. It's an important element. Maybe at like the end of every 4 bars or every 8 bars, you could add something like that. And yeah, so the next thing we have here is this clap. Very similarly, it doesn't have much in the way of processing, but this is what it sounds like. So this is just like a nice clap. Again, with this one, it's just more about the sample selection. Here's the original sound. And then I just turned on this EQ8, which is cutting out the low end. And yeah, it just gets rid of that little bit of low end that was in the original. So then yeah, with this clap, you know, it's really nothing too much or too difficult to it. It's just like I said about sample choice. Trying to find like this style of clap, I think, is your best bet. Sort of like that, you know, short and crunchy, kind of like very organic sounding clap. So the next thing I have here are some hi-hats, which sound like this. So what we have going on in here is 3 sounds. So we have this closed hi-hat, this open hi-hat, and then the shaker. And then I just have these all in a drum rack, and then you can see we're just kind of sequencing them. Now, one cool thing I did notice in the original is this little shaker sound. You can hear him sort of using it the way you would use like a little rim shot or a snare, typically in this style of house, with those little kind of like accent notes. But in the original, it was actually a shaker. And the cool thing is the shaker has like a very similar quality sonically actually to a snare, like in that sort of like mid-range. So it kind of gives the illusion of a snare, but it's more like soft, if that makes any sense. So, it's just kind of like little subtle things like this that you got to notice if you want to really understand how these tracks work. But yeah, so then, like I said, these are all just in the drum rack. I'm playing them pretty straightforward kind of pattern there. So then the last thing we have is this pad, which sounds like this. And to be honest with you, I didn't exactly nail the pad. Like I said, this video is more about the bass line and the drums. But I did want to show you guys how I made the pad or how sort of the pad was made. Because I do know how it was made. I just think that the way that it's made kind of like, it's very much not something that you can recreate easily because it's kind of like based on, like what synth was being used and kind of like very, very precise details of like where the filter frequency and resonance are and just all these kinds of things that you can't necessarily recreate so easily. But like I said, I know what's going on, so I can explain that to you. So for the pad, as far as notes go or MIDI goes, all we have is just this G or this E minor chord that is that's playing through. And what I've done for this is I've taken the third up an octave, so I'll put that back down, and then I doubled up the root. So here's the basic E minor triad. And then, yeah, like I said, just double up the root and then put the third up an octave. And you can hear it really makes that third shine. This is something I like to do. Obviously, if you've seen my tutorials, you know I do this in like every single one of them. But yeah, it just really brings out the brightness. It makes the chord a little bit deeper because it's spread across the keyboard. So then for the sound, it's also really not too difficult. It's basically 2 saw waves, an analog, and a little bit of white noise. And then the second saw wave is turned up an octave. So if I turn that off, you can see. Just add some brightness to it. I think this is how he made the original synth as well. And then after that, I have this low pass filter with a bit of an envelope on it. You can see it's got some attack, and it's kind of shaped like that, so it sort of like goes up and then down. And then I have the amplitude envelope set like this, so just standard. But yeah, so after that, I have it going into a chorus, which just adds some stereo width. If I turn it off, you can hear it's a little bit more bland, but with the chorus, it spreads it out and gives it like that nice kind of like watery effect. And then after that, I have a bit of reverb, kind of a straightforward thing. And that's going into a saturator, which as you can see is actually on pretty heavy. So if I turn this off, you can hear it's very quiet. It's not quite as like juicy and analog sounding, but when we add the saturator, it kind of like pushes it a little bit more and brings out those like nice analog qualities. And then I just have a sidechain to the kick. Pretty straightforward there. But yeah, so that's mainly it for this one. Like I said, this is mostly focusing on the drums and the bass. I really wanted to try to nail those because I think there's some cool things going on with those in this track. And yeah, make sure to get the project file from this video in the description. Like I said, you can get it for free, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, you can pick it up there. Thank you again, everybody. My social media is on the screen. Go give me a follow if you like this video. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And thank you again, everybody. I will see you tomorrow with another tutorial.